Hey, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast here tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about our kids killing parents' retirement. Pretty interesting topic. Something I'm pretty passionate about as far as retirement goes, but there's a lot of things that go into with our kids and how we raise them. We all know what it takes to raise children and the cost of that. But as they get older, so there's some things that we definitely want to take account for and make sure that we handle the right way. So we're going to talk a little bit about some surveys that were done and some studies that were done in regards to how helping adult children or older children can really derail your retirement and savings and other things you can do. After this is posted tonight, I'll post the recording, and after I'll post the document about this as well in the guide. So I'm going to go over some of it. There's going to be a lot more details inside this document. Some good reading. It would talk a little bit about some research that was done about parents helping adult children, about the generational changes, some tips and things to do to prepare your children for financial readiness, the timing of those things, the psychological aspects of it. So there's a pretty good little document that I hope you'll enjoy. That I will put that out there for everybody to look at. So let's get into it. So there was a study that was done, some analysis that was done by Bankrate, which is a company. You can go to bankrate.com, you can look up rates and whatnot, financial company. And it showed that there's a whopping 68% of parents have sacrificed some form of their retirement or wealth to help out their adult children. That is a crazy huge number. And I'm just going to say it off the bat, and then we're going to get into it. When we're planning for retirement, as much as we want to help our kids out and we want to do everything we can possibly for our kids, I break this into two categories: leaving a legacy and helping our kids, right? But leaving the legacy side, don't use your retirement money to leave a legacy. You worked your whole life for that money. You use life insurance to do that, right? That's pennies on the dollar compared to all the blood, sweat, and tears of what you had to do to earn that money and save it. If you want to leave a legacy and leave money to them, use life insurance. It's so much cheaper, and then you have money for your retirement. Because I'm telling you, here's what happens. A lot of people will save and save and save and save and say, hey, I want to leave all this money to my kids. Well, then you don't enjoy your retirement. You're not having fun. You worked your whole life. You want to be happy in retirement, but then you're not enjoying your retirement. So guess what happens? You pass away, and then the money goes to your kids. Then they have a great life. They're buying the boats and having the vacations and living the life, right? Which I know everybody wants their happiness for their kids. I do as well. But let's teach them responsibility and build up their own wealth. Of course, we're always not going to leave our kids hanging, but at the same time, leaving a legacy side, like I said, pennies on a dollar for doing life insurance. Now, as far as the other side is helping kids out, yes, we're going to help our kids out, but there needs to be some boundaries of how we do that. And part of it is teaching your kids young about finances, right? And there's definitely some generational differences here between the generations, from baby boomers and pre that all the way through millennials and Gen Zs. The mindsets are totally different as far as what they expect. And us as parents need to do a good job of setting the expectations early about what we expect them to pay for at what age, and teach them financial foundations early on, like way early on. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Through all this, best thing I can say is that sometimes it's hard to do, but you got to stand your ground, right? It's the best advice for parents is you got to stand your ground once you set those principles and you set the expectations out there. I like the saying as well. There's a guy that put it out there. It says, remember, it's like saying about putting on your oxygen mask before helping others, right? You can't, if you put the oxygen mask on them first, then you pass out and you're no good to them, right? So put your oxygen mask on first, and then help them. You got to take care of yourself, right? Who's going to look after yourself but yourself? You got to look after your own person, and that's what you want to instill in your kids as well. But parents are stepping in to help their children out in a pinch, and I totally get that, and we do the same thing. But you got to set some boundaries around that, and you don't want to sacrifice your life savings and your retirement, and for doing that. So, like I said, over 2/3 or 68% of parents have helped adult children, and they're making that financial sacrifice that's really hurting the back end of their life and their planning. So like I said, this document is going to have all these details and a lot more, so I hope you check it out afterwards. But helping your children in the short term definitely has a long-term impact on your retirement and your capability to live comfortably on your own, right? So let's teach them the foundations early on. So let's talk about a little bit, to what extent people are helping their kids. Let me share my screen here for a second. Let me do this. Do a screen share. Here we go. There we go. So let me blow this up a little bit so you can see it. Just to show you some charts. So significantly, somewhat, and not at all. Retirement savings, emergency savings, paying down debt, and reaching some other financial milestone that they're saving for. These are the percentages. When you combine them all together, somewhat insignificant. They're all making sacrifices. So, dipping in retirement savings, dipping in emergency savings, paying down debt, and reaching some other financial milestone are all being sacrificed by parents to help their kids out. Well, that's some pretty large numbers. And I like the thing that the studies found as well is that men are significantly more likely than women to feel they are that they have to sacrifice for their children as far as what they're going to do, and the percentage of them that answer that. It's kind of crazy. The funny thing was, I have highlighted the one exception on this survey was in the Midwest, where far fewer parents felt they had the need to sacrifice financially for their kids, which is kind of strange. So I'm not sure what they're doing out there in the Midwest, but the stats were a little bit skewed in that direction. So some of that just might be, kind of speak to the culture and the upbringing in that area. As you can see through the doc, like, so you're going to copy this, you can see some big stats in here in regards to, they break it out in incomes under 50,000 and over 50,000, and then over 100,000. You can see the different statistics, and no matter how much people make, they're still pretty middle of the road as far as how many people are helping their kids out, right? And doing that sacrifice, which, like I said, which is fine, to sacrifice for your kids and help them out. But you got to do it at the appropriate times in the right way and set expectations. So another quick, interesting little stat: baby boomers expect financial independence earlier than Gen Z does, and then also the millennials. I'm not going to break out Gen Z and the millennials on this video. You can see it in the document. But let me go down to this other section here, and I want to show you the kind of the differences of what the expectations are and how that has changed over time, from the generations. So let me put those back up. So this is when the survey was asked, what age do you think persons should start paying for their own bills? So if you look across there, different categories, they broke it up, car payments, cell phones, housing, student loans, health insurance, and so on. Gen Zs, 21, 22, 23, some all the way up to 24. Millennials are pretty close, a little bit different. Gen X's, you can see the different ages here. So there's the breakdown of the age categories. It starts going down a little bit, but then you go down into the baby boomers and then what they call the silent generation. That's 74 plus. But the baby boomers, which are what a lot of the parents are now at this current day and age. If you look at the ages, are a lot younger, right? The mindsets have changed. We're not in the age of, back then we weren't in the age of entitlement, whereas the younger generation kind of has that mindset of entitlement. And well, there's a lot of different factors to that as well. But I think as a society, we're getting away from teaching our kids financial stability, financial principles, and how to take care of themselves. Sometimes you got to push them to do that. And you got to teach them the right way. And as a society, we're getting further and further away from that. And we're also seeing the statistics from that show up that parents are now suffering much more in their retirement. The stats are kind of staggering as far as how many people in their retirement are living well below where they should be, or even close to poverty, because they didn't see either save properly, or they've given up a lot of their money to their kids. That's not the only reason, obviously, but the numbers have increased, pretty drastically. All right, let me kill that again. All right, let me scroll through this stuff. So some tips about helping your children become financially independent. First of all, you got to align your budget with your partner in the budgeting aspects with your partner, meaning set your budget. We talked about budget earlier, got all that down. If you're going to be helping your kids, whether it's with schooling or different miscellaneous bills, between the age of 16 and 20 some, you have to be aligned as partners. You got to be in agreement with your spouse. and agree what you're going to give to them and what you're not. Are you going to, still put in emergency funds? Hopefully you are still saving up for retirement. You got to bucket that and have it a category for helping your children, just like you would anything else. It needs to be tracked. You need to agree and you need to stick to it, right? You got to set expectations with your children. Sure, you want to help your children financially, give specific dollar amounts and within a specific time frame and stick to it. Be clear about the parameters of the financial assistance that you're going to be giving to them, and they shouldn't see you helping them out financially as a blank check that they can just go to the bank of mom and dad whenever they want. You got to set some parameters and boundaries with that, right? Otherwise, it becomes very awkward conversations. You got to have those conversations sooner than rather later. Having conversations about financial independence, about budgeting, about what that means, right? Did you tell your kids, they could have a cell phone, and when are they going to start paying for it? Did you teach them basic budgeting skills? Did they have to work chores to earn money? Did they have to save for things that they wanted, right? And they actually had to put money away and save it. Did they have to plan ahead? Did you share with them how you handle your budgets and money? And hopefully you learned some stuff from our group and you share that with them. Obviously not when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, but definitely as they get into their teen years, you want to be teaching these things so they get a clear idea from it. You got to teach them a sense of responsibility as well. It's chores, earning money, getting a job, setting those expectations. It's okay for them to have skin in the game for their life, and especially when they get into college and beyond. Yes, you're going to make a transition period, but they learn responsibility at a young age. That mindset is carved in early on. And if you're just handing them everything at a young age all the way through college, one, they're come to expect it. Their work ethic could be affected by that. And they don't know how to manage their money. It definitely has a long-term impact on the kids. And we're seeing some impacts of that into the younger generations today. So if you want them to be more financially independent, you got to start earlier, right? You got to start earlier. They should be, starting to earn things on their own. They got to earn some responsibility early on. Set the precedence. Just don't hand over the money. And then as they get older, you start weaning that down as far as what you're paying for them. Like as in college, are you going to, if you're paying for college for them, I'm a firm believer in if you have the means to do so. And let me asterisk that. If you have the means to do so, help them out with college, but they should have some skin in the game as well. They should be getting scholarships. They should be, applying for them. They should be paying, and they should get student loans. You should not be having to pay your kids' student loans off. At the end of the day, they should have some skin in the game as well. If you want to help them out with that, that is perfectly fine. But they need to have some responsibility into that aspect as well. Otherwise, you're getting later on in years, and now you just taking on this huge extra loaded debt, right? So they need to have some skin in the game. There's things you can do too as your kids transition out from college. Being on a cell phone plan together as a family is beneficial because it's cheaper for everybody to be on it than them going off and getting it on their own. But then you ask your kids to pay you. You may pay the bill and it may be on your name, but they pay you, right? Sometimes you can do that with car insurance and whatnot as well if they're living with you, those kind of things. But then you can start weaning them down. Set markers, set expectations of when you expect them to pay for their housing expenses, when you start cell phones, health insurance, whatever it may be. Set those parameters, right? And hopefully you set the expectations early. Don't surprise them when they graduate from college or or right beforehand and say, hey, you're responsible for all this now. Set a plan out, just like you set a budget, set a plan with them. All right. I talked a little bit about, I have a blurb in here about the entitlement generation, that they kind of expect everything. Look, as parents, we owe them, food and clothing and shelter. We don't owe them the designer clothes and everything that they ever wish to have that comes out of their mouth that we provide to them. Yes, I want to, I like to spoil my kids and now spoil my grandbabies, but that does not do them any good, right? Yes, spoil them every once in a while and surprise them with some nice things. But that's not your job to go above and beyond and be kind of overboard with it, right? If they want those very extra things, then they should be having taken on responsibility to pay for it. That does a couple different things. One, that gives them a sense of responsibility and ownership and pride in doing what they're doing. And it also saves you some money that you can be socking that away for retirement, right? You're not doing your kid any justice by just handing everything over to them. They're not learning anything. They're going to struggle later on. Later on in this document as well, There's some things in there from some psychiatrists that talk about that aspect of it, the kind of the social and mental aspects of the finances and stewardship and doing things for your kids and what impacts that has on them. When you get into one of the other times you get into credit concerns, don't ever co-sign credit cards and loans and whatnot, because if your kid's not responsible, you're on the hook. They're going to come after you just as hard as they're going to come after them. You don't want to destroy your credit after all these years of building it up as you're getting in later on in years. If you want them to have credit cards, then they can either get it on their own. If they're a student, sometimes there's some banks that will let them get a small line on their own. And then, or you can put them on your card and set limits. Most all cards, you can do that. They get their own card. You can set limits on it. Obviously, it's tracked until they can, get a card on their own. But don't jeopardize your own credit for that. As far as, and I put a lot more in there about when to start cutting the financial cord. Please read that section that talks about, what to do as a teenager and into the college years and how you can start doing that. So please take a look at that as well. Like I said, you got to set boundaries. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Don't do yourself an injustice by helping your kids too much. And like I said, this isn't meant to sound negative. I take care of my kids. We take care of our kids. But we've also taught them responsibility. I can testify to you, I've seen too many examples of people that I've worked with that they've gone overboard with their kids, and they just hand everything to them, and their kids struggle in early adulthood, and then they struggle, and then yourself as a parent struggles by not having enough money. Have those conversations, start early, start young, teaching them those foundations of finances, responsibility, and what that means. Believe it or not, they may moan and groan at it at first, but when they accomplish working for something, buying something their own, they saved up for it, they got it, that's a sense of accomplishment. And it's instilling a work ethic on top of financial education. It does wonders for them. It does wonders for their work ethic. It instills that early so they can be good workers in society later on. I can't stress that enough. I counsel a lot of people when I go and work with them for finances. I counsel with people as well as far as obviously their budgets, but what they're doing with their families and with their marriages and how they do that from a financial standpoint. But it's just as critical to do that with your kids. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up, send me a DM, on the Facebook Messenger, schedule a meeting with me on my calendar link. I'll put that out there as well. You can find it as well, out on the Facebook page on some other posts. Be happy to talk to you if you need any further pointers. After the broadcast, I'll get this document out there sometime tonight, and it'll be in the guide section. Please read through it. There's a lot of other good details in there, but I definitely wanted to jump on, a live session with you and speak to you a little bit about it. I'm a firm believer in you worked all hard for your life. Don't sacrifice your retirement. Teach your kids the responsibility, and for them to take care of themselves and earn their own way. And that helps instill a sense of security for them and a good work ethic so they can take care of themselves and their children, right? And then the other point that I made early on is don't save up your retirement just to turn it away. Enjoy your retirement. You just don't want to hand it over to them. There's other ways to do that. Like I said, life insurance is so cheap. Pennies on the dollar compared to you giving up your nest egg that you worked for your whole life. So hopefully this makes sense. I hope it hits home and gets you thinking a little bit. Read through some of the details I put in the doc. Hit me up if you have questions. I'm happy to help. Give you some more tips and tricks and work with you if you need to. So with that, I'm going to sign out. I look forward to next week as we continue down the journey of financial fitness and security. I posted a video out on our group the other night, earlier today actually, about an interview that a friend of mine that's a realtor did with me, talking about being physically fit. Kind of fits in with what we've been talking about over the last several weeks or months. So check that out. I posted it out there if you want to look at it. Look forward to next week. Again, hit me up if you have any questions. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Have a blessed week, and we'll talk soon.